Israel and Iran are trading new attacks this morning. The Israeli military says it will intensify its operations in Iran that pose a threat to Israel. It comes as President Trump claims the U.S. will pause its strikes on Iranian energy sites and that progress is being made in potential peace talks. Joining us this morning in the broadcast center is Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Danon. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, the president here in the U.S. is saying that there are negotiations underway. There's a 15-point plan that was proposed. Is Israel involved in those negotiations? And do you know anything about the details of it?
Well, first, let's make it clear. We continue to strike Iran. And I say with Israel and the U.S. President Trump sent an ultimatum. And now he pushed it, he delayed the ultimatum, but we continue to hammer Iran to dismantle their capabilities. It's very successful. You know, we accomplish a lot. I would say we're winning the war. It's not over yet. We still have a lot of targets. At the same time, President Trump is trying to negotiate with the Iranians. We know that it's hard because they are not honest. So there are a few countries trying to mediate now. Pakistan, Egypt, and others coming and say, let's mediate. But at the same time, we will continue with our strikes and we will intensify them.
Mr. Ambassador, how can negotiations and diplomacy be successful when there were negotiations before between the U.S. and Iran? This war unfolded in the middle of diplomacy.
Well, we hope and we believe that at the end of the day...
Why should they trust these negotiations, the Iranians?
Well, I think today they're in a different situation. We should trust them, because they lied for generations, for years. I'll give you one example. You know, a few weeks ago, the Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs said that they don't have ballistic missiles that can reach 4,000 kilometers. Last week, they sent a ballistic missile to Diego Garcia Island, which is 4,000 kilometers from Iran. So they are lying all the way. So they have to actually prove their intentions. And I think today they're in a different position. They are not admitting it. They're playing hard to get. But let's look at the facts. We dismantled the Navy, the Air Force, most of their ballistic capabilities. We are not done yet, but it's not the same Iran that was here a month ago.
Mr. Ambassador, the president, in trying to position this conflict, this war with the American people, has stated a number of different objectives. He first stated that regime change was the objective. He then, as we heard from Secretary Hegseth, talked about destroying the military capabilities, their ballistic missile capabilities. Now it's shifting to never being able to refine or to enrich uranium. Do Israel and the United States share the same goals? What is the perfect scenario for the Israelis in this conflict?
Well, I think the goals are the same from the beginning. It's to make sure they don't have the nuclear capability, the ballistic missile threat, weaken the proxies, and create the conditions for a regime change. We never say that we guarantee a regime change, because it's very hard to predict a revolution. We pray for that. The Iranian people deserve a better regime, but no one can guarantee it. So it's up to them to decide about it. But in terms of capabilities and threatening not only Israel or the U.S., the entire world. You spoke with your correspondent in Dubai. 83% of the projectile that was sent from Iran in the last months were not against Israel. They sent it to the Gulf
countries.
Neighbors.
But let me ask you, Mr. Ambassador, so if the United States and the president succeeds and the Iranians agree to this 15-point plan, then how then do you ensure, because this is something we've been here before, you've been here before, if the Iranians agree not to enrich uranium, how do we verify?
So it's a very valid point, because we have bad experience with them. When President Obama signed the JCPOA, you know, they were supposed to allow inspectors to come in, and we know they played the system. So I think this time we are more experienced, and we will have to be on top of it. When I say we, the international community, the IAEA, all the agencies will have to make sure that they are not continuing with their efforts.
Mr. Ambassador, when you look long-term, 5-10 years from now, there is going to be deep resentment about this war. And part of the objective is to reduce the threat posed by Iran. How do you reduce the threat in the long term of people who are going to hold resentment against Israel, against the U.S. for this war? Thousands of people have died in Iran, in Lebanon. There, of course, were lives lost in Israel as well.
I think many people will be grateful for the leadership of President Trump and for the leadership of Prime Minister Netanyahu for taking that decision. It would have been much easier for both of them to push it and say, you know what, somebody else will deal with that. You know, let's wait. But they didn't wait. And I want to use the example of North Korea. Very similar behavior. For years, negotiations, delays, games. One morning, North Korea announced that they achieved nuclear capability. So President Trump decided not to allow that to happen and not to wake up one morning with the nuclear Iran. So I think down the line, people in Israel and the U.S. and in the world will be grateful for what's happening now.
It's difficult, as you know, Mr. Ambassador. I mean, the news was similar when we all woke up and we found out that Pakistan had nuclear weapons, and they have occasionally been allies to the United States in years past. I want to ask you about Israel's vaunted Iron Dome. I mean, on one hand, we hear from the President and the Secretary of Defense that the United States and Israel are knocking out Iran's ballistic missile capabilities, but I have my friends in Tel Aviv who are posting pictures on the internet of showing missiles that have struck in neighborhoods. A friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, posted a video of a missile that struck near a school in Tel Aviv. So can you explain to us, I mean, if their ballistic missile capability has been degraded, how are some of these missiles still getting through? Where are they shooting? Where are they firing them from?
So they still have capabilities, not like they used to have. And we have to realize Iron Dome, it's a great system. We developed it with the US, but it's not 100% guaranteed. So unfortunately, we cannot block all the ballistic missiles. I would say more than 90% success rate. But once a ballistic missile lands in a neighborhood, and they target civilians, they target only civilian neighborhoods, it's costly, it's painful, we have casualties, and every day you have millions of Israelis spending hours in bomb shelters because of those ballistic missiles. And they are willing to do that. They're telling the government, keep hammering, finish the job this time.
You've been clear that the goal here is for Iran, one of the goals not to have nuclear capabilities. This week you were pressed about Israel's right to be a nuclear power. What is your response to that criticism?
So you need to look at the region and ask yourself whether we are stabilizing the region or not. And Israel is a source of stability in the region. When you look at Iran, and you see that they attacked 13 countries in a month. You know, that's insane. They send rockets to Turkey. They send rockets to Lebanon and all the Gulf countries. So Israel is a source of stability. And we know that if Iran will acquire nuclear capabilities, probably they would use it.
What is the end game here? And was there a miscalculation? Because at the outset of this, President Trump was calling for regime change, was calling for Iranians to rise up. That didn't happen.
I'm optimistic. I believe there will be a regime change. No one can actually decide when it will happen. But we weakened the regime. Hopefully it will happen sooner than later. But I think it will happen. I think it will happen. And the most important thing, that Iran will not have the capabilities to threaten. Look at what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. That's piracy 2026. You know, we spoke about piracy in the Caribbean, in Somalia. Today, they blackmail the international community. They charge millions of dollars from countries in order to pass through the straits. It cannot continue the same way.
Mr. Ambassador, before you go, I want to ask you, you live here in the United States while serving as the ambassador to the United Nations. We've seen increasing levels of anti-Semitism here in this country. Now we're seeing it abroad in the West. We just saw another heinous attack in the United Kingdom. And so I wonder, your government, when they are conducting these military operations, is that a consideration that some people will do terrible things because of the way that they perceive your actions in the region to be? Or is that something that you just understand has been a part of the Jewish history for many thousands of years? You're always going to be combating ignorance and hatred, and you have to do what you have to do to secure the peace for your people.
Unfortunately, what we have seen, that anti-Semitism is on the rise, regardless of what's happening in the Middle East. In the last 10 years, regardless, you know, even in the U.S., the numbers are going up every year. So when we had the conflict with Hamas in Gaza, there were more incidents. But even after we have a ceasefire and we released all the hostages, we still see the numbers go up. In Europe and the U.S., it's disturbing, and we expect more action from governments, not only to declare that they will fight hate, but actually to take action and make sure that all Jews all around the world feel safe.
What would be a recommendation then to the United States and to Prime Minister Starmer about how to go about doing that? The FBI is tracking these, as you know, but those FBI reports also suggest that these cases are increasing, which is astounding to me in 2026 that we're still talking about this.
So when I meet with colleagues and head of states, I ask them, how many indictments you had in your country in the last year?
For hate crimes.
Because they all say the right things. They condemn it, they speak about unity, but actual actions, you will find out that unfortunately, not too many.
Ambassador Danny Danon, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.